The stock market has plummeted since Donald Trump took office. I've been doing research to try to understand what is going on. What I uncovered is going to shock you. Make sure you watch to the end of this video because I will be revealing 3 stocks you want to have in your portfolio. Quick disclaimer. This video is not investing advice and is for educational purposes only. Investing is risky. You can lose all or in some cases more than your initial investment. It is recommended that you talk with a professional advisor before making investment decisions. So what is happening to the stock market? Do you see this big drop off here? In my opinion, this is Trump derangement syndrome. We've all seen Trump derangement syndrome. You will be talking with someone, and if the topic of Trump comes up, it's like they lose their mind. I have personally had conversations with people that really shocked me. I've been talking with professional people I respect, and I will watch as they completely lose their ability to have rational thoughts. It is wild.
They call it like Trump derangement syndrome. And you don't realize how real this is until you can't reason with people. So I was at a friend's birthday party in LA, just a birthday dinner, and it was a nice, quiet dinner, and everyone was behaving normally. And I happened to mention, this is before the election, like a month or two before, I happened to mention the president's name, and it was like they got shot with a dart in the jugular that contained like methamphetamine and rabies, okay? And they're like, wow! And I'm like, what is wrong? Guys, you can't have a normal conversation. Yeah. And it's like they become completely irrational.
Here's another good example of Trump derangement syndrome. Trump recently gave a joint address to Congress. Look at how popular this speech was among viewers. It was hugely popular. Now, to be fair, viewership was mostly Republican, but still, these are unheard of approval numbers. During the speech, he talked about a 13-year-old boy in the audience named DJ. This boy had always dreamed of being a police officer, but he was dying from brain cancer. Donald Trump announced that he was going to make him an official member of the Secret Service. In NBC's coverage of the speech, the camera pans over to the Democrats, and none of them are clapping. We see Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz sitting with a scowl on her face. That is Trump derangement syndrome. Who refuses to clap for a boy dying of brain cancer? That kid deserved a standing ovation.
Is it just the Democrat leadership that does not see that?
There's something wrong with them. It's just something, I can't even believe it. They lost an election in a landslide. They were talking about men playing in women's sports. When I looked the other night, I made a speech. The Republicans were going wild. And the Democrats were having their little signs up, their little tiny signs. And I said, it's unbelievable. They don't get it. They don't get it now. And I think they're going to end up being a minor party if they keep going like this, because people don't want to hear about these stupid ideas that they have. Transgender for everybody. And again, the men and women's sports, what is that, a 90-10 deal? I don't even know who the 10 would be.
But Trump derangement syndrome gets even worse.
Shut up, Elon! Go home, Elon!
When you already have $300 billion, why do you need more?
Wake up! Fight back!
I have friends who are undocumented.
As a queer person, I've been affected by this. Elon is the biggest clown there is, so I decided to dress up as a clown today.
So this woman is dressed like a clown because she thinks that Elon Musk is a clown. Is it possible that this person has Trump derangement syndrome? Maybe it's this person who is actually the clown. But it gets worse. The attacks have turned violent.
I've seen this happen all over the country. Bullets are being fired, charging stations are put ablaze, Teslas are being put ablaze. You have experienced assassination, threats of assassination for you and your family. What have you done that warrants this? Because I see nothing that you have done except help our country.
Yeah, I mean, it's really come as quite a shock to me that there's this level of really hatred and violence from the left. I always thought the left, or Democrats, were supposed to be the party of empathy, the party of caring, and yet they're burning down cars, they're firebombing dealerships, they're firing bullets into dealerships, they're just, smashing up Teslas. Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful. I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things. So I think we just have a deranged, there's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense.
I have to point something out here. There were Democrats celebrating when people tried to take the life of Donald Trump. There were Democrats celebrating when Louis Mangione allegedly murdered the CEO of an insurance company in broad daylight. And now Democrats are celebrating the violent destruction of Tesla dealerships. In fact, a group has set up a website called DogeQuest, which has reportedly published the names, addresses, and phone numbers of Tesla owners across the US. On the website, you can pull up a map with their location, and your cursor turns into a Molotov cocktail, encouraging people to commit violence on ordinary citizens across the country. This is derangement. It is evil, and it needs to stop. This is not just fringe people. Here is Jimmy Kimmel joking about vandalizing Tesla vehicles.
Tesla stock is way down, almost disastrously so. People have been vandalizing Tesla vehicles, new Tesla vehicles. Please don't vandalize, don't ever vandalize Tesla vehicles. And so
he says this sarcastically, and then the audience laughs. They are laughing at violently destroying people's cars. This is disgusting. I only see this violence coming from one side of the political spectrum. It is my opinion that this same Trump derangement syndrome has infected the stock market. This problem is unique in how financial markets work in America. Most Americans pay into some form of retirement account, either a 401k or a pension plan. A lot of this money gets combined into investment funds. These funds are then managed by investment banks on Wall Street in Manhattan. So the attitudes of people in New York do have an abnormally large impact on the stock market. For example, the state of California has over 220,000 full-time employees. All their retirement funds get pooled together and sent to New York. Now, some people do control their specific retirement investments, but I would say that most investments are managed by some type of investment fund. The people who work at these investment banks live in and around Manhattan. In the 2024 election, Manhattan voted 80% for Kamala Harris. They are incredibly biased towards Democrats. Here's what I think is happening. These companies employ thousands of people, and a good portion of them have Trump derangement syndrome. All of these people are standing around the water cooler at work talking with each other, and they're saying, "Oh my goodness, did you hear that Trump did this? And Trump did that? And isn't it horrible? And the world is about to end." They have all of these conversations, and then they go back to sit at their cubicles, and then they decide how to make trades with the stocks in your retirement account. A lot of them have been selling and pushing prices down in the market. The stock market has now lost all the gains it has made over the last 6 months. I really think this is what is happening. It has nothing to do with market fundamentals. It has nothing to do with making good financial decisions. It has nothing to do with reality. I believe it is these networks of people in Manhattan who have worked themselves up into a state of irrational fear. Now, I know that some of you will say that I'm blowing this out of proportion, but there's actually a lot of evidence that shows what I'm saying is true. Just to use one example, let's look at the company Target. If you remember, Target was involved in a massive scandal and boycott when they promoted trans merchandise for kids made by a satanic designer. Guess what Target is doing now? Last week, on March 12th, Target released their annual financial statements. It is normal in your financial statements to include a list of different risks a company faces. One of these risks is that the government can change the laws and regulatory environment that affects the company. That's a normal disclosure. But I checked Target's financial statements against what they released last year. They rewrote this paragraph and inserted 3 times that this risk now includes executive orders. 3 times they point out that Trump's actions as president are a risk to target. Why would they make this change? To my knowledge, this has never happened before, that companies would write into their financial statements that the incoming president was a risk to their company. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but Donald Trump is not a risk to target. In fact, I would argue that Trump's pro-business policies are actually going to benefit Target. Why are they putting this in here? This tells us that these accountants and lawyers and all these crazy people on Wall Street are writing their Trump derangement syndrome into financial documents to justify their stock selling. Now, some people will argue that there is a legitimate reason behind the stock decline, and it is because Donald Trump started a trade war. Let me explain once again why this is Trump derangement syndrome. He did the same thing during his first term as president. Do you remember when he put tariffs in place against China?
I like China, and I like President Xi a lot. I think he's a friend of mine. He may not be a friend of mine anymore, but I think he probably respects. From what I hear, if you look at Mr. Pillsbury, the leading authority on China, he was on a good show. I won't mention the name of the show recently, and he was saying that China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain. He said, Donald Trump, they don't know what to do. Never happened. Well, one thing they are trying to do is they're trying to convince people to go against Donald Trump, because a normal, regular political person that has no concept of what the hell he's doing would let China continue to take $500 billion a year out of our country and rebuild their country. I mean, they were building 29 massive bridges, like the George Washington Bridge. They're building things that we don't build anymore.
Trump's tariffs on China ended up being hugely successful. In fact, they were so successful that when Joe Biden took office, he kept the tariffs in place. The idea that these tariffs are going to destabilize the economy is not based on reality, because last time they ended up being a very good thing. But people continue to use scare tactics about these tariffs. Now people are comparing Trump's tariffs to the Great Depression.
With the stock market crashing in 1929 and the country entering the Great Depression, Reed Smoot had the worst idea any chairman of the Senate Finance Committee ever had. It had come to be known as the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. It raised tariffs astronomically, higher than ever before, on thousands of goods. It was exactly what Donald Trump is now proposing as a presidential candidate. There is universal agreement among economists that Smoot-Hawley tariffs made the Great Depression even worse. Those tariffs did not protect American jobs. They killed American jobs.
I think this is revisionist history. MSNBC has to try a little bit harder if they want to trick me. Tariffs did not cause the Great Depression. We know this because the Great Depression started the year before the Smoot-Hawley tariffs were signed into law. Wild speculation on Wall Street caused the Great Depression. It was the fault of the crazy irrational people working at the investment banks. Do not try to pass the blame off onto government bureaucrats. I'm going to show you why this fear over Trump tariffs is overblown. Let us look what happened last week. On March 10th, Canada announced they were going to impose a 25% tax increase on electricity exports to the U.S. in response to Trump's trade war. The next day, Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum in retaliation to Ontario's electricity tax. By the end of the day, the tariffs on both sides were dropped. Canadian officials agreed to meet with Trump to renegotiate their trade deals. This is a chart of the S&P 500 for March 11th. You can see the moment when Trump drops the tariffs and the markets shoot up. Do you see how ridiculous this is? When this was all over, there were no tariffs on anything. Trump was negotiating. He's done this before. He told us he was going to do this. There was not any negative impact other than the good deals he is getting for the United States. There was no reason for the market to plummet and then shoot back up again. We're talking about the boring topic of international trade negotiations with Canada, of all countries. If this was any other president, I doubt the newspapers would have even covered this story. This volatility is Trump derangement syndrome.
Look, I know that you inherited a mess, and you said that the other night.
I've only been here,
but are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time.
And a lot of people said, oh, this is the business president. This is it. He's watching the stock market. He knows all about, he doesn't want the market to go down. And now we've got tariffs and the market has been going down.
Well, not much. I mean, in all fairness,
you said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation.
Let us look at reality. Here's what is actually going on in the economy. It has only been a few months since Trump was elected, and egg prices have plummeted. Gasoline prices hit their lowest price in 4 years. And perhaps the most important thing, inflation has been coming down.
Finally, we have some good news on the economy and really the number one issue for many Americans, the cost of living. So we just learned that consumer prices in February increased by 2.8% year over year, 0.2% month over month. Both of these figures were a step in the right direction, and both were better than expected. So this is definitely very encouraging to see, because it's going to, I think, relieve some fears that inflation was perhaps re-accelerating, because this actually breaks a streak of 4 straight months where I think you could see it on the chart all the way to the right, where the inflation rate was going in the wrong direction, right? It was going higher and higher. Finally, we're seeing it dip.
Here's a chart of the Truflation U.S. Inflation Index. Here is when Donald Trump took office. I think the chart speaks for itself. These are massive indicators that the economy is heading in the right direction. So if the economy is doing so well, why is the stock market crashing? I really think it is Trump derangement syndrome. There is a disconnect between economic reality and what is happening in the stock market. And whenever the stock market moves away from reality, there's an opportunity to make money. If the history of economics has taught us anything, it is that greed eventually kicks in and the markets will correct themselves. If the stock market starts to reflect the positive economic indicators, stock prices are going to rise. Whenever you analyze stocks, it is helpful to find a similar business case you can compare. In fact, we do have a really good example for what is going on in the US right now: Argentina. Just over 1 year ago, Argentina elected a new president, Javier Milei, on December 10th, 2023. He is a libertarian and an economist, and he has been implementing many of the same economic policies that Donald Trump is using. The economic results have shocked everyone. In 2023, Argentina had the highest inflation in the world at 211%. Now inflation is at 2.7%. Milei implemented severe budget cuts and achieved a budget surplus for the first time since 2008. But most importantly, the Argentina stock market, the Merval, has increased 130%. If the U.S. achieves just a fraction of the success of Argentina, we are about to experience a massive economic boom. In my opinion, Wall Street and their Trump derangement syndrome is getting things wrong yet again. I think something that Donald Trump should consider is to encourage financial companies to leave New York and expand their operations in other cities like Miami, Florida, or Dallas, Texas? Why does Wall Street have to be in New York? Let us have more competition between the states for the companies that trade all of our retirement funds. There are so many policies that Trump could implement to incentivize financial businesses to leave New York. Given the massive mismanagement that we can all see in the stock market, I think this is a move that they deserve. Let me tell you what I really think is going on with the stock market. I think Donald Trump is a lot smarter than the media gives him credit for.
Well, I think the press makes me more uncivil than I am. You know, people don't understand. I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well. I'm a very intelligent person. The fact is, I really believe the press creates a different image of Donald Trump than the real person.
I think that Donald Trump is not worried about the stock market because he is playing 4D chess. Donald Trump has the goal of fixing the U.S. budget, which has an enormous amount of debt. With the stock market crashing, that's going to increase demand for people to purchase U.S. government bonds. That's going to make it easier for Donald Trump to pay down U.S. debt. I think Donald Trump is using people's Trump derangement syndrome against themselves. If he can pull this off, Donald Trump is about to complete one of the greatest financial trades of all time, and Wall Street has no clue they are helping him do it. Now is the part of the video that you probably care the most about. What should you do to make money in this environment? I'm going to tell you 3 stocks that you should consider as part of a well-diversified portfolio. In full disclosure, I personally own stock in these 3 companies. Tesla. One of the things I always look for in a stock is whether it is undervalued. Is this a good buy at the current price? I think Tesla stock has been unfairly beaten down in this stock market because of Elon Musk. Now, let me be clear. I do not normally recommend that people buy Tesla stock. In general, it is too volatile, and there's usually better options out there. But the price right now is just too good to pass up. It has currently dropped around negative 45% from its high at $479.86. So, if you bought in now, and if you think it will ever regain the level it was at before, you would almost double your money. This is like if you went to a garage sale, and you noticed a painting by Picasso sitting there, and no one realized how much it was worth. You have a chance to buy Tesla stock for cheap right now because it is being unfairly beat down by Trump derangement syndrome. Meta. This is another stock that I believe is being unfairly beat down. It has currently dropped around negative 20% from its high of $736.67. Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, is a part of people's lives. People are not going to stop using social media, which makes it an advertising machine. Also, the CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has shown in multiple press appearances that he is willing to adapt to the changing political environment. This ability to adapt is a good sign for a tech company. I think Meta is currently at a good price, and it will likely go up when the market corrects. Now, I know that some of you do not like Facebook. You may be angry at some of the censorship they have done in the past, and some people think that Mark Zuckerberg is an alien lizard person. None of that matters. As a stock investor, the only thing you should be thinking about is, will this person make you money? I think that he will. John Deere. This is a well-established American company that makes large machinery. When the economy does well, businesses make capital investments by buying large machinery. So John Deere stock generally performs well if the economy goes through an economic boom. But what has really caught my eye about John Deere is that while the whole stock market is crashing, John Deere stock has actually gone up. This is a sign that the stock has momentum. If the overall stock market turns around, John Deere stock will likely continue this upward momentum. So those are 3 stocks that I would take a look at. I believe that Trump derangement syndrome is unfairly pushing down the value of these stocks to attractive levels. Now, I'm not advocating for this. But if Republicans were to coordinate their investments, this could become the largest wealth transfer that has ever happened from Democrats to Republicans. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the economy is about to collapse, or does the future look bright? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. Quick update. You may have noticed that my website, wolvesandfinance.com, was down for a few days. There was some kind of attack on my website after the last video I posted on George Soros. That's a strange coincidence. But the website is back up and running. Please go and check it out. If you like these videos, the best way to support me is to sign up for a monthly membership on wolvesandfinance.com. For $6 a month, you're helping me to keep making these videos. And you get access to our social media site where we chat about what is going on throughout the week. Thank you to everyone who has signed up so far. I appreciate it. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.